Hey, and welcome back to the A24 podcast. We're so excited to share this conversation between the Safdi brothers and Paul Tomas Andерсон, three of the greatest filmmakers of their respective generations. Listening to them talk about their craft and share stories is possibly the best and cheapest film education around. We hope you enjoy it. Take your family to see Uncut Gems over the holiday, and we'll see you next year. And now, Josh, Benny, and PTA.
You're listening to the A24 podcast.
Yes, you're listening.
Benny, you got the nice mic.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the nice one. Okay.
We did this job once where it was like a PSA for turtles.
Yeah.
and we were shooting with some people, and they were wearing wire mics, radio mics.
I was mixing and I was running boom and all that, but I heard the wire mics, and there was a whole side conversation between the two of them about the turtle and the intricate kind of bend and sway of the turtle's neck, and it got very
Sexual.
Yes.
Yeah. And then one of them reminded the other, like, we are wearing microphones.
Yes. They just look over right at me. It's like this. Dead stare. Like, I didn't hear a thing. You know?
It's probably better in that scenario to actually confront him and be like, yeah, I heard everything you said.
No, it went away. It disappeared. And then he brings it up.
Did you get anybody knowing in the sort of situations that you had across the street, mixing with real people? How many times a day did somebody know that was Sandler?
Weirdly enough, I feel like because what we do is we would have extras and PAs out in the streets that if they saw someone who did recognize him, they were instructed to go up and be like, hey, where's the 6 train? Or something like that, so that you have that in the background. But there's one take, I remember, did we show that part to you when you saw it early on or no? The fight scene between him and Julia after the nightclub?
Yes.
And there's a guy standing there, literally 6 feet away from them when they're having this epic argument. He is doing his best to be a pedestrian. He's just averting the eyes, but he's in the movie. And he didn't recognize it was Sandler. I wonder. I never paid attention to it, really.
People would notice him, and he would just do this thing where he'd be like, oh, yeah, hey, just give me a second. But as Howard, even though they don't realize that he's still being a nice guy, he'll be like, just give me 1 second, I'll get you after this, and then he'll go right into the role.
What about in your film, in Punch Drunk Love, when you're in the Hawaii, in the parade scene? That's a real parade, I imagine, right?
That's a real parade, but he's at least shielded
by
that phone booth. But we had done other stuff.
Were those extras around him? Or those were real people?
Oh, man.
Real people just standing right next to him.
There's a parade going on, and honestly, he just swooped in. But that's not to say that we didn't have our own fair share of that. It was before 9/11, so we were running through an airport. I mean, we were running through, through an airport. And we were going so fast, there was just one moment where somebody called out, "It's Ben Stiller!"
It's the beauty of having a Jewish comedian.
It's the funny guy on TV.
That's crazy because the movie came out after 9/11, but you shot it before, obviously.
Yeah. So we were running through metal detectors and airport security and stuff. No one was saying boo. That was, a different time.
You just brought the camera in and you were...
It doesn't look like that at all. Well, that's what's amazing. No,
we cut that shit out because it didn't look like
But you know what I mean? It doesn't have the feeling
but
it seems like you had total control over everything.
Right. I mean, sometimes you can, like, that parade scene that you're talking about, that's like, talking of Sandler, like, this chaos is going on. He's getting the take. He's pretty good, but he's got to go to, like, 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the take that's in the film was they were having all these sweet things kind of go by on the parade, like sweet, like kindergarten hula classes
that you wanted.
And shit like that. And it was like, okay, and he's not there. So the take that's in the film where he goes absolutely ballistic, this tribal kind of drum thing comes through, and you feel that get in. Here's that, it gets inside him, and the next thing you know, he's like, his eyes are bulging out of his head. Yeah. That's sort of the magical situation of shooting in a real scenario. Yeah. Like,
fate comes into play.
Yeah,
Sandler's like that. We were just talking about that with him earlier today. He's like the oldest soul in the world and the youngest soul in the world at the same time. And in your movie, I mean, I see it I would watch just the close-ups in our movie, but in your movie with he's like he's really like a newborn, but he's also like this ancient person who's trying to manifest his own destiny all the time. And I was telling him this morning. I said to him, I told him we were going to see you later, and I said, it's the little things. It's almost like the old soul is getting frustrated with the young soul in that movie. Mm-hmm. So when he's at the dinner with her on the first date, and they're like he's telling her about the pudding thing, and then she brings up the hammer story, and he just does that little hand thing. He throws his hand with just that pure frustration. The old soul being angry at the young soul, and it's just, oh man, but that's and that movie's very cosmic, but also kind of like a cartoon. I mean,
his cadence in it is so fragile, and beautiful.
Yeah,
and it captures what makes his comedy so awesome too, which I love. That's what was so.
You're a Big Daddy fan, right?
Big Daddy fan.
Big Daddy's amazing. That was the one that you saw that you were like this.
That I'd seen Happy Gilmore and I loved that. Right, that was really the beginning. But I also knew SNL. Right, so I knew SNL and then Happy Gilmore. Don't tell Adam. I liked The Waterboy, but I didn't love The Waterboy like I loved Happy Gilmore. But Big Daddy just was something else entirely.
For sure, yeah.
In particular, the scene when he's screaming at his dad on the telephone. Joe, the late, great Joe Bologna. Yep. And then I kind of backtracked. Then I was like, wait, now I need to see every single thing in detail over and over and over and over and over again.
The only one I've never seen of his is Going Overboard. Yeah.
I don't know Going Overboard.
Yeah.
So
the cover I know very well.
Well, the cover they put Sandler's face.
Oh yes, I do know this one. Yes, of course, of course. Yeah.
I've seen that. There's actually the trailer online. It's pretty amazing. He's talking right to the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. I'd never seen that one, but no. And you were on the set of Little Nicky.
Yeah, that's when I first met him. I was down the street here having dinner with Mike DeLuca, and he was like, "What do you want to do next?" I said, I know you know Adam Sandler. I want to work with Adam Sandler." And he says, like, he's down the street at Paramount. He's shooting. You should go visit him. And he called him up, so I went to go visit. And I kind of came on the set. I hate visiting sets. I don't know. Right?
You feel like a nuisance, right?
Like, this is horrible. But
it reminds you of how horrible it is making a movie.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And yeah. Does it look like that? Do I look like that fucking douchey? God. And then Quentin came over to me because Quentin was shooting. Was shooting, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And I could see in his head, he's like, "Well, what's going on?"
Yeah.
Because at the time he had been writing Inglourious Bastards, and he had this idea. And he had this idea.
Oh, and he's like,
whoa.
Yeah. So he sees you. He's like, I'm in Little Nicky right now.
What are you doing?
I love that.
Incredible. I was like, "See you, sucker." So that was my first intro to Sandler.
It's incredible.
It was good. So we kind of became friends. And Magnolia had just come out, and he goes and he sees it after a day of shooting Little Nicky. On his way home, this is very Sandler. Now that you know him really well, it's like driving to the movies after a long day of work, by himself. Like park the car, go up, get a ticket, watches a 3.5 hour fucking thing, and calls me. He's like, buddy, that's not what we're planning on doing, right?
There's an amazing story. So I was sitting at home, and it was like there was the Channel 35 in New York, which was like the sex channel at nighttime. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, then every once in a while there's a commercial, and I'm watching the commercial.
Why are you watching it, Benny?
Because I was just enjoying. I was enjoying myself.
Yeah.
And so I'm watching.
Literally.
And then all of a sudden, I'm like, what is going on right now? I see Tom Cruise doing an ad for this sex thing, and I'm like, what the? I was literally, my head exploded because this is like late night New York, nobody is there, and I ran over to Josh. I'm like, Josh, you have no idea. And I was trying to tell him, and he's like, you are out of your mind. There's no, and this is like months before anything was even out there.
Cool. That was cool.
And
Mark.
then I remember,
I show up on the set.
But I clocked.
That was your idea?
Yeah.
I clocked the number, and I remembered the number. I'm like, all right. And then I was like, when we got to a movie theater, I went to the payphone because I wasn't going to call from the home phone. So I called from the payphone. I'm like, Josh, listen. And it was him doing the recording. I was like, this is insane.
That's amazing.
So
I wish I still had, because we would just listen to the messages all day long. Some guy would be like, yo, man, Tom Cruise.
Really?
That's fucked up that you're doing this ads, man. You were cool before.
You met Tom on the set of Eyes Wide Shut?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's better than Little Nicky, a little bit. I went and met him and then met Kubrick and Nicole Kidman, and I'll take that one with me.
Yeah.
There's a story that I read somewhere that after a couple of takes, you said something to Kubrick, and then something like you only need to do 3 or something like that, or
no, we talked about the size of his crew because
he
had like 6 people.
Amazing.
And I said, like, God, that's you got a small crew. And he's like, well, how many do you use? And it was like one of those moments where you really have to assess, like a fucking 100.
Yeah.
That's too many.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. How many were on Phantom Thread? That seemed like you pared it down a little.
That was small. Thank God, because we were in such a small space.
Yeah, the location really, that's what, shooting on location helps it a lot.
It does.
Yeah.
I mean, it must be the same for you.
Yeah.
Right?
This was a big one for us. This was a big crew for us.
What's big? 40.
No. I think Good Time was probably in the 40 to
40s,
50 range, and then
Really?
But we're shooting a lot of stuff, with very splintered crew.
Yeah,
at
it's
times.
a matter of like where the main crew.
Gems
is
was
and-
major.
Yeah,
Gems
yeah,
was like a
exactly.
major. So we had like crew requirements, minimum crew
Well, there was-
requirements, and things like that.
Yeah, there were probably like close to 100 at times.
yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, sometimes you just feel like you're trying to outrun where the base camp is.
Yeah.
Yes.
You all stay here. We'll be right back.
You know that story about They All Laughed, the Bogdanovich story, where he told the call time and the thing, it was like Midtown, something like that. And then he took Gazzara and Audrey Hepburn down to the South Street Seaport in a cab. And he's like, we're just going to shoot, and took the camera guy. So that scene where Audrey Hepburn's leaving I think it's like a shoe shop or something, you can actually see people be like, what is
Well,
that?
that was a live shoe store. Like she just ran in there, and
Yeah, and they
she-
said,
hold
"Wait
on."
there, we'll have you
They all
come
wanted to like take pictures, talk to her, and she's like, "Give me a second, I'm just gonna go do something." And she ran outside and did the scene, and then went back.
But
in
we
there.
would, like there's a bunch of scenes in the movie where Sandler is just amongst normal street, but we would.
We never closed down the street, though.
No,
we
no,
never
no.
did.
Right.
If somebody walks through, they walk through. But it's also like if in something in New York, if you close down that street, people get so angry. And like I'm guilty of that too. It's like, and I'm like, I try to be nice when a person's like, oh, we're shooting something, because I'm like, I feel like, okay, I got to put the camera out there. But after 5 minutes, I'm like, all right, let me through. I don't know.
I want to go back for a second to something that just came into my mind because it's important and I have to tell you. First of all, just that the fact that you made the film with Adam was, for me personally, I think I even told you this before. It came at a time when I was 18 when that movie came out, and I was like in my phase of I got to catch up with a lot of movies that I haven't seen, so I wasn't seeing new stuff.
Right.
I really was just seeing a lot of old, but that, I was a fan of your movie, so you go and you see the things that still mean. But Sandler was this like hero of mine from the comedy stuff and the comedy records and the movies, and then when the two worlds combined, it was kind of groundbreaking to me, and I gotta thank you, man. That was, it's like Popeye. You know what I mean?
Right.
It is like you use that Nilsson track, but he's like this superhero, and you made an Adam Sandler movie.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
But you did that anyway. I had to get that off my chest. I'm listening to Benny talk about us not closing down streets and leaving it, But I had to get that off my chest. I'm sorry for the non sequitur.
Well, no, it's not a non sequitur because we're talking about Sandler, because you guys got of this movie, like, is he in every single scene?
Well, there's stuff with Julia that's the only other person we run off with.
it's
Julia,
close.
yeah.
That's right. When she goes down to Atlantic City.
Yeah. Mohegan Sun, yeah.
But he's in every scene.
He's a phone call.
Yeah, no,
away.
his vibe is in every scene for sure. Well, obviously the opening Africa, but even that he's still. We actually made a joke when we were shooting down in Africa. There's like this long chute that was attached to, which actually was really scary. All these loose rocks in it, and we made this joke. They were like, because everyone who showed up to be in this movie thought Adam Sandler was going to be there in Africa, so everyone was like, "Is Adam coming to set?" I was like, No. This takes place before we meet his character, and then Ronnie Bronstein, who we wrote
even in fucking Africa, Adam Sandler,
which is crazy.
Yeah.
And Ronnie Bronstein, who was there, he says to me, he's like, "No, let's just tell him what's gonna happen in the scene." I was like, "What's gonna?" He's like, I see him telling people, he's like, "So Sandler is gonna come." Howard's character belays down this long chimney and says, "You got my gem." And he was like, we were trying to think of the most ridiculous, almost Zohan-like thing that we can write. And they were just like, oh yeah, they could imagine that. You know what I mean? That wouldn't be weird
could
for Adam
say-
Sandler
the
to
thing
be
is, you could
belaying
say-
down like a jeweler from
In a
47th
weird way,
Street.
you could say anything with him, and you can imagine it. That's what makes him incredible. Is that you could imagine him in any situation, and you totally buy that he would be there, caring about it. It's insane.
Yeah, they call it star power.
There was
It's true.
There was an amazing.
It's a real thing.
It is.
It's a real thing.
He showed up.
Genuine thing.
He showed up on the set one day, and I was like, "Wow, Sandler, you look really good." He goes, "Hey, that's why some of us are movie stars." I was like,
You also do this thing where he had these grapes, right? They were were deli grapes. You know what I mean? They're grapes you get at the deli, but they got in his hand.
Oh, they were like,
you know, in the plastic bowl. You walk around, they'd be cold from sitting in a fridge, and he would offer people grapes. And everyone's like, wow, I get to have an Adam Sandler grape. And you take them, and you're like, wow, these are really good grapes. Movie star grapes. You know, like they only a couple guys get these grapes. That's what he said.
But you know, if you were telling me this story and it was Brad Pitt, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Leo DiCaprio, that's a movie star,
sure.
right? But when you see Sandler from a distance, you're like, not a movie star, not a movie star. And as he gets closer and closer, you're like, movie? Movie star. It's a movie star.
Yeah.
Totally. You know, when you saw him taken out of the normal context in your movie, it magnified that stardom in a little bit, because you're just seeing this guy with a little coffee mug in his hand.
Yeah.
You know, and and he's such a small man, Barry Egan, but he's so big. You know what I mean? He's so big. And then you made him. You know, it's not a nude scene, but it might as well be a nude scene. That first phone call,
Right.
was the most vulnerable I'd ever seen Adam Sandler. It was amazing.
Did you guys how was he early on? Did it take a couple days? Or
we did a thing
you
that
guys were also noodling around a lot beforehand.
Yeah.
So did you hit the ground running, or did you
Actually,
take him a second to find
for that first kind of rehearsal, we did kind of hit the ground running. It was kind
Rehearsal
of
or
the
camera test?
The camera test.
Well,
or
the character
character test.
He said he did that. He said the only other movie he had done that on before was
Right.
Strong Love It.
Yeah,
About
that's
4
why I was asking, because it was like it took a second. You know, it was once it happened.
Yeah.
It was weird though. He was pretty it wasn't all there, but it was pretty close.
Right.
And it was kind of exciting that all of a sudden he just put on this clothes and he put on these like the teeth, and he just kind of clicked.
Right.
And there was something really special. Like in that test, there's a lot of Howard.
We did a crazy thing. I as a performer, I would have been petrified. I mean, we did 3 things. First, we presented the whole thing, which is what it actually was. The function of it was a screen test for Julia Fox.
Right.
But we told him that. But the reality was, we're also thinking,
It was the first time he was Howard.
This is what is Howard going to be
Yeah.
like? We wrote him pretty specifically on the page, but how is Sandler going to breathe him? Howard was so much fun to write.
Right.
I actually had to write some voicemails for him to leave as in character for this pop-up A24 is doing. And I had so much fun just writing them. We were in Boston, and Sandler was in front of me, and I just said, I still got it. I just write this guy's voice so easily. The thing with Sandler is he has this like vulnerability and this rage at the same time, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, and he was able to kind of flip it on and off, and it was funny. It was also like he was giving us the humor that we wanted to. So then, we left there and we went to a karaoke spot. We rented a karaoke room. We
did a wardrobe change.
We did a wardrobe change, and then the scenario was that Howard shows up late because he couldn't get out of something with his family, and Julia's already there with these other jewelers, and they're performing. And actually, the jeweler told Liam Payne from One Direction, was like, hey, Adam Sandler's going to be here, you should come through. And they end up singing the Bee Gees, How Deep Is Your Love together. And I'm sitting there, I mean, Saturday Night Fever is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I'm sitting there watching one of my heroes, Adam Sandler. I don't know the music of One Direction, but I you know, the guy's a professional singer, and they're both singing. And
he went to see Adam Sandler, and Adam just shows up as Howard.
Howard.
Doesn't break. He's just like, all right, yeah. He's acting like he's a peer of this other jeweler.
That's great.
Just totally,
Right.
like no facade.
But the scary thing that we did with him was the next day we had Julia come back because it went so well, and we had this viewing room at a sports bar, and we filled it with these degenerate gamblers, some real life bookies who we were actually trying to convince to be in the movie still. And the game was on. There was a Celtics game on. That was the only script.
Right.
You have your bet, and this is it. And all these people show up to meet Adam Sandler, but here he shows up as Howard.
Right.
And he's trying to give them enough Sandler so that they're like okay with it, but he's really just trying to open up their personality so he can feast on them in a weird
Right.
way.
Well, the thing that's crazy, we had 2 cameras filming it just to kind of maybe we would edit together.
We never tried.
We never, because it was impossible. But that was in a weird way, and now I'm realizing it was like a kind of a test for how we were going to just film the scenes in the movie, which is he's, in a way, not going to be able to understand what we're shooting. We're going to be shooting something.
Right.
And so he's just got to be Howard all the time for it to really work.
Right.
And, yeah, he just, in that night, he was just seeing it with that leather coat. And he had like gel in his
We
hair.
had a moment on set too where the script ended with him. It's in the movie where he asks Kevin Garnett, does your coach know you're here? And he goes, no. And then Damani says, a crazy ass Jew. On set, in the moment, we were all in the back room, and he was kind of coming in and out with the earrings. And we just didn't want it to stop because he was just come and look at us like a dog. Like, what do you want me to do now? Right. And we would be like, Jeremy Lin. And he would come and be like, what do you think about this Jeremy Lin kid? And then Kevin would he'd come back out and be like, all right, what's next?
Woodson.
We'd like, ask him about the herb in the league. And he's like, what's up with the herb in the league? A lot of guys are smoking now. What do you think about that? Good or bad? And it became this like constant in and out. It was unbelievable because you got to see the comedian and the firing.
Right.
I'm wondering, did you do were there any moments in your film where you just kind of let him go?
Bits here and there, but
Supermarket maybe?
Maybe a little bit, but they were smaller bursts. There was less pressure like the situations you guys had. It's a different character too. It's not like someone who's going to be able to snap talk like Howard, So we'd have glimpses of it, and it would be exciting. But that's the power of Adams, that he's Barry still. Right?
Yeah.
But how do you find that line then? Because I would assume that people see this film and think that there's absolutely no script, that everybody is making up every single word that they say, and that balance between doing a test where you're like, we didn't even bother to cut it together. Because I know that feeling. Sometimes when you're in the middle of it, you're like, this is so far out in improv land that it's kind of wonderful, but it's useless.
Yes, for sure. And it's a good means, not an end. Improv, often.
Right.
And it's a tool to cover up the tracks in a way. So somebody can kind of add in a little bit here and there over the general rhythm and the actual lines, and then it just disappears.
When we're writing with Ronnie, who you met, the script is so scary to me, the page, because it's so dead.
Yeah.
It's just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So, and we spend 10 years writing this thing, so you just keep revisiting it and hearing it out loud. And then once we started, we probably read it out loud with Sandler, 4 or 5 times as a group. And each time we would be doing, I would have the final draft document open and changing it as I'm hearing him say his instincts.
Right.
So you're just, it's a constant. It was a constant evolve. The goal was to make it seem like it was unspooling in front of you, that there's no script at all, because that adds also to the tension. That adds to the fact, the plausibility. Like, no, this is actually happening in front of me, and I can't believe it.
And then then you add that with actors allowing to cut each other off at any moment. Like, there's that freedom. Like, I'm going to stop you and say my line now. Stop, and then but that doesn't happen at the same point on each other's takes, and we have a shot reverse shot with no actual cross coverage. And then again, you're thinking, wait a second, that shouldn't have been possible to have an A-B on that, because it just happened. So you think then everything is real, and then you think there's no way that they just kind of...
So you always one camera, or
we had multiple cameras, but never for the edit. Never helping.
Never helping the edit.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and and is that have to do with His Royal Highness, the greatest cinematographer?
It actually
Darius,
it did.
We should talk in depth about.
Yeah,
yes,
I know we all love him and have worked with him.
It did.
I
He
love
refused.
what you guys did together. That was
the greatest. But when I heard that he was doing this with you, I hope Darius hears this, because he'll say some nice things about him. But I was nervous because Darius is such a master, and the work that he has done, most previous, looks like it took 3 months to paint every single shot, right?
12 setup a day guy type thing.
Right. But in working with him, and now hearing that your experience was good with him, there's like some things that's so brilliant about him. It's like he adapted, and he's like,
for sure.
And I said, my compliment to him is, it looks like there's not a one fucking light on.
I don't know. It's insane.
And that's
He lit the hell out of the movie.
Oh my God!
Absolutely.
Well, I remember I was looking at just a video, because I had to take a video of how he got it. When Julie opens the door, the amount he had this lights popping through this one point and reflecting back and forth on various muslin cloths, back and forth
and
onto her,
and
then negative. So, and it all to just kind of land at the perfect.
Yeah.
Because he looks at it like real things. He's like, I call him a necromancer in the same way, because he literally talks about like like it's alive, and he has to bring it back.
You know,
Did he shoot that test that you guys did?
He didn't actually. He was working on. I forgot what he was working on. He was working on the TV show that he did out here, so he couldn't. But we did do a music video for Jay-Z with him, and that was the most chaotic shoot I've ever been a part of in my life. And I was up in the helicopter operating the camera up there because he wouldn't do the helicopter stuff because of a accident he had for maybe the interpreter, I think. I don't remember which film. So we tried that out, and he was this poetic Zen center. And I'm not kidding. It was such a hectic shoot. In 2 days, and it was tough nights, cold. Everyone's pretending to be summer. If we could do that together, we'll be fine in an actual structured production. Right. But he said very early, he's like, I want to make your movie. I don't want you to make my movie.
Yeah, I mean, he's for somebody of that caliber, I think the expectation would be like, you're fucking lucky to have me.
Yeah.
No, he's
very much the opposite. And I remember he told me he wrote in a notebook before he came to work with you guys. He said, "This is not my movie." It's so Darius, like me taking
Well, he's
so generous.
He's ageless in the sense that he's like. He feels like a cousin of mine, an 8-year-old cousin of mine when I was 8. You know what I mean? That and he had so much energy on set. It was incredible. And he has this. He said, "You frame the film, Josh. You frame it." I drew all the storyboards. We talked a lot about it. So he's like, "You're gonna frame the film. I can only just give you my opinion." And as you know, like he is of a certain ilk of a person who looks at lenses like science fiction pieces of machinery, like these things that capture humanity in a very unique way. I mean, it was even in Punch Drunk Love, those flare moments evoke, the cosmos in a strange way. And he is like that. So he basically would say, okay, well, these are the lenses. He was the first person to say we got to do anamorphic because he was looking at our casting and he's like, these faces are unbelievable. And normally the human face is 4:3, you'd think. But he's like, no, it has to be anamorphic, 4 perf anamorphic, so that you can feel like these faces are in 3D. And from there,
he made us talk so detailed.
We would often, our references with him.
We would get so deep into the discussion of the shots and the movement, and it became this insane kind of story outside of everything.
The idea
else,
of long lens movement but with long lens was. At first, no.
At
first, he was like, "This isn't okay. We can't."
He was,
why would you move the camera on a long lens? Like, what's the effect?
But a 400 to a 425. What?
And often Sandler would hear us like being like, I think we should go with the 150 macro here. He's like, let's try this. Let's put the 75 on. I was like, I think the 150. And then put the 75 on. We're looking at it like, oh, yeah, it's nice. It's nice. And he goes, okay, fine, let's put the 150 on. And then he looks and he goes, you were right. It's the 150. And he started to see the movie through our lens, which was very cool. And he started to, I remember one point.
He did it.
He found this. There's this movie, The Moment of Truth. You ever see this movie, the Francesco Rossi movie? It's about a bullfighter. Miguelin.
A real bullfighter in a fictional film.
Yeah, it's an awesome movie, and we watched it. Actually, they set up a screening for us at the Criterion because they did the mastering. We watched it together, and he did research, and he found out that they use this 360 C lens, 360 millimeter C lens, and he searched and he searched and he found it, and it showed up in this red box, and it was like when he brought it to us, it was like finding an alien carcass. He's like, I got it, and then we would put it every once in a while. He would be like, should we try the 360? And 360 is a long lens, you know what I mean?
And it's prime, so you can't. You're stuck.
And so he got to be very on pace with it, even though our main reference with the whole movie was this architect named Michael Graves, who literally Darius to this day texts me. He's like, please, I never want to hear the name Michael Graves ever again. He's like a super postmodern architect who's like
garish but beautiful.
Guy. So that was our constant. We would send him these images of this guy's buildings or like a dustbuster that he designed. And he'd just be like, please stop. Just send me a Saul Leiter photograph once, please. I was like, we're not making Carol, you know what I mean? But Saul Leiter's a genius, but that's not what we're doing.
He spent all this time with all these lights bouncing off, and it was for a very specific spot. And we don't block, so we let the actors go, and then we fix and change to them. And Darius comes up to me and he goes, okay, Benny, why don't you just tell them to stand 3 feet to the left in the spot because it's perfect for the light. I said, well, Darius, they chose to stand there, so we're going to have them stand there. And he's like, but it's 2 feet. Just stand right there. And I was like, I can't do it.
It was like Howard at the end.
I was like,
I can't.
that's where they chose. That's where it's got to be. And Josh's like, yeah, let's move the light. Let's do this. He had to totally open up. And like he's like 360 lighting. I've never done that before. Just have the camera be able to shoot anywhere.
But it's such a measure of him as
unbelievable.
an artist and a man, because I think that there are, I don't want to name any names, but let's just say like the pros, like maybe like a Gordon Willis type or somebody would have said, then we're not fucking shooting.
Yes.
And if they move, you know what I mean? You're not like.
No, I was a little. I mean, the reason why that thought never even entered my head was because of the actual interpersonal relationship with him.
Totally.
And he's like, it's amazing. He was sending me stills from pictures from your short together. Look, he's like, look at VistaVision. Look at and he's still, after all these years, he's so excited. He's so excited.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But genuinely excited. And he was. I remember when you guys were looking at the tests. And he said, he's like, Josh, you don't understand what this looks like. And I love that. And then he would tell Benny, when we were coloring, that's when a lot of the battles happened. Coloring is when it got heated, actually.
You were actually doing color while we were.
Mercifully, he was in New York.
Yes.
And it was like a little bit like, sorry, Darce, the bad connection. He's like, all right.
But so like the first week and a half, we were just like watching the movie with him, and we were just trying things out. And we're used to like, you got 6 days and you do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. So we're now sitting, we have the 6 days to figure out what we're gonna do during the 2 weeks or something. So that was very new to us. But he wanted to try. And then what happened was we went down a road where we kind of started to push the movie to a place where it was a little bit against our intentions.
Yeah.
And because you can do anything in these color corrects, you can do
Especially
anything
now. Yeah.
So then we ended up just reverting back to the initial intention, and it's you know, Darius, when he saw the movie, it's funny when we texted him like, we're doing the HDR pass now, and he was like, please don't tell me that.
Yeah.
I love the HDR was
for a movie like this, the HDR is so appropriate. You know what I mean?
But yeah, it was like, don't put me in the room. He didn't want to. He didn't want to see it.
No,
like,
he would have had a heart attack.
But I mean, HDR is insane. It's just like
I remember there was one point where we had to be separate because there was so much going on, and I was in the color, and with Darius.
Oh yeah, that's when I was doing the score stuff.
And we're going intensely at it.
I was getting texts from the two of them. Darius would be like, hello, Josh. Are you planning on coming back? And I would be like the person. And I'd be like, Darius, I love you. How's it going? He goes, fine, but maybe you should turn. And I was like, I'm at the score right now. We're recording with the sax guy. And then I'll get text from Benny. He's like, this is unbelievable. We're going, me and Darius.
It's getting intense.
Yeah, it's getting intense.
But there were some times on set.
I love Darius's approach. Was just like, my friend, Josh.
Yeah.
I love you.
Absolutely. This is ugly, no?
Yeah.
You're like, no, this is good. I think it's good.
I think
but it's disgusting. No?
The way he phrases the extremes.
Exactly.
But he would be so. What's incredible about on this movie in particular with Darius was he and I had the direct line of communication between me, him, and the operator. That's it. And so
is there an operator that you worked with?
I never worked with him. And Maceo Bishop, who's
incredible.
So that's a big, tall challenge for somebody in that job stepping into how you guys make movies.
Man.
That could really
Darius was very keen to bring him in early, and we would sit and he would listen to us going through shot listing and storyboards, and Maceo's he ended up shooting. He was actually the DP down in Africa because you were working with Darius. That's right. Oh no,
that's exactly
you were
right.
working with Darius. Yeah, because I was sending him pictures from Africa, sending him things, and he'd be like, embrace the contrast, darker, darker, darker. So I was telling Maceo, I was like, Darius wants us to go darker, and he goes, all right. So we just keep, darkening it and higher keep. But
Maceo's instincts were insane. That's the thing is like when we were like with him, like wow, he just knows, and he moved so well.
He worked with Pietro, Deacons,
Darius.
He's worked with Darius
as a Steadicam. It was like
he's a great Steadicam op. Yeah.
Once we saw like it was actually kind of unfair, and I felt a little bad at times because like wow, he can do anything.
Right.
And so there were times where we're like, all right, we're just on the Steadicam all day.
Right.
Because he could nail it.
But Darius was he was like, this is the only person who I want to operate.
Every once in a while he would remind us. He's like, not many people can do what's going on right now.
Yeah, we'll throw 150 onto the steady cam, and at one point he's like, "Look, Maceo's like, I can put the 360 on. It's just too heavy, and I'll have to be doing a lot of counterbalancing, and I don't think it'll work." But he fit in right away. I mean, he was also, again, just like Darius, he had this. They speak French with each other, and
okay.
He's not French, but he speaks French, Maceo, and he's just. He just has he was part of the casting department like Darius was, like he cast the team.
Yeah.
His AC, this guy Chris Solano.
Oh my God.
He was the one, because we said we don't do any marks. He's like, we're pushing 2 stops. Anamorphic. You got 4 inches depth of field. Like we gotta figure this out. And we met with this guy Chris who uses the Light Ranger. And he's kind of like team Light Ranger, which Kubrick was really into. I guess they had one on the set of Eyes Wide Shut, but it wasn't the technology. You couldn't put it on the camera yet. It was like next to the camera, but he was like, this is gonna change things. But it's so, I've seen people who don't know how to actually use it because it's hard to
smoke.
Yeah, it's hard to actually understand it. And I watched an AC on a C camera when we were doing like pickups on the stage or something. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, what's going on? This monitor looked like it was like the focus was having a seizure.
Because there was no light.
And I told Dave, I was like, we got to get Chris in, because there was it's like the cult of the Light Ranger. There was a new cult member, and he just didn't know how to interpret it.
Right.
But it was amazing. We never had to worry about focus.
We did
never.
We
were doing
stuff.
really crazy. Like Howard never stands still.
Right.
And you're in low light scenarios, and the camera's moving,
and then schedule wise, we like had to figure out a way to get all of our shots in, and so we would do stuff where it's like, okay, we'll sneak in our insert after the close up, and we'll just kind of stay rolling and regroup.
Right.
And we were doing some things where we were on the close up of Sandler. It's like, all right, let's quick stay rolling. We need to get a close up of the opal. And it's on a 150 macro, so it goes to the close-up. We didn't even tell Chris, and he just rolls, and now he's getting like a pristine museum-quality close-up of a gem, and it just didn't.
I have a weird question. Is Punch Drunk Love the first time people saw him anamorphic?
Oh,
no?
I think it is. Unless
those
are been. I think so.
Airheads might have been, actually.
Maybe Airheads could be a Super 35 situation.
Yeah. I just brought that up with him earlier.
Oh,
Airheads.
Yeah, he's so cool in it.
Yeah, but no,
because that was different. Just seeing him anamorphic was different
for sure.
Like,
you're reminding me of. I'm sorry, just back 2 seconds to Darius. That Darius would be on his phone in Prague, lighting in Africa, when we were doing a test here in Tarzana, and he was. Literally, we had this digital camera running because he was really pushing for this Alexa,
the
65 Alexa thing.
He loves it.
So I was kind of cranky about that. That's over.
Yeah, you were not even paying attention to it.
I was not paying attention to it at all. And there's a tech there. There's people that are so sweetly like, and after like 4 hours of testing, I see them over there. They're talking on these headsets. Like, what the fuck? I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, we're talking to Darius. I'm like, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Darius is in his apartment in Paris going like, just a little more blue. Blue. I was like, are you and he's been filming us the whole time, watching us work. So now picking up like, okay, so that's how he talks to that person. He's got it all figured out.
Darius gets very obsessive. He once saw me because I never left the set ever. I was like afraid of leaving the set because I left once and I saw the trailers and I was like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So he was like, you were watching the whole movie on this little monitor? And I said, yeah, I like it. And then you don't get the
colors.
You don't get the LUT from the. You're just getting like this crazy, overexposed thing straight from the film camera. And he's like, why don't you come and watch with me out here on the big monitor? It looks beautiful. And I said, yeah, I don't think I ever want to go out there.
No.
So I remember one time, like, my communication with him ended, and I was, like, trying to talk to him, and I couldn't get to him. I come out, and I see him doing the same thing. He's like, Josh, can you hear me? But the beauty of that direct communication with Darius the whole time is I would get these live commentaries that he doesn't even realize he's saying. Mm-hmm. He would call Howard Houdini all the time. He's like Houdini. He would laugh throughout the whole movie because he was off set, so he was just laughing, and I could hear his giggles, and so could Maceo, and that was so encouraging. That's like, you forget, you have this technical side of the process, but in the end, it's, you're after something human, and he brings such like a touching humanity to the process. I found your film to be very touching, Anima. I found it to be very touching. And obviously it's, the cinematography is a part of that, and Tom York is a huge part of that too, but in the story, but it was touching.
Yeah.
I have to bring up it was like my brain literally just went there and I shut off. I'm sorry. But it was the firecracker scene with like the amount of sound going on in that scene, and just what that does.
In Boogie Nights?
Yeah, it's one of the most incredible things. And I remember seeing that and being like, oh my God, this is possible?
Right.
It's insane.
Well, that's back to the sound thing again too. Yeah. I can remember rehearsing that scene and being like, okay, it's the big ending of the movie, and I guess we should just start. And then when the fucking first firecracker goes off, you're like, this is going to be good. Yeah. But before that, there's not that much to work on.
Yeah.
If the firecrackers aren't going off. That was, I remember that, actually back to a Kubrick thing again. I remember somebody telling me one time that all the it's fake. Obviously, there's a little bit of a myth here, but all the gunshots, whatever, maybe Full Metal Jacket, are the same gunshot. He found one that he liked, and in the firecracker thing, there was like one firecracker that sounded exactly right. And so we ended up just like, whenever there was a gap to fill, and if I would just put the same firecracker over and over.
It's incredible.
Again.
Was Altman like that on set? Was Altman like allowing people, like we let people speak, extras talk, and totally. I know that Elliot Gould told me that once on California Split, that those scenes in those casinos, it's just deafening. Everyone's talking, and he let it live.
Totally, but I also think that there are as the master who sort of invented that multi-track thing. We here are definitely the children of that, but thankfully have learned, I think, from those mistakes, because there are some of those films. There are some times in California Split where you're like, good try, but I can't hear a fucking word.
Well, that famous story about Warren Beatty.
Yes, I do.
The premiere of what became 20 minutes in, is this the whole movie sound like this? And Altman like, yeah, right. What's the problem? Altman was a big gambler, so I just found like a huge gambler in his late period.
I didn't know the gambling part of him as much.
You must have loved. You must have been. He must have been huge for you. Yeah.
I loved hanging around with him.
That's insanity to me.
He was oh man.
I can't even believe like that. Some of those movies are.
We used Randy Balsmeyer did our title, our opening title. And I'm in his office, and I see like this thing scribbled on shortcuts. I was like, "What is that scribble?" He goes, "That's my note from Bob." It was like the most amazing. You couldn't read it for the life. It was just like, you know what I mean? It looked like a design in the design flaw of the poster. But I asked him. He said that He said that when he came, do you remember the titles from Shortcuts?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, they're beautiful. He just was so encouraging of all the people he collaborated with.
Yeah.
To just kind of vertically integrate within the project.
Yeah.
Well, there was something. There's something in what is it? It was the it's like a goddamn what it was in one of those. I'm blanking. I'm sorry. I can't remember the movie it is, but there was something that he did. Oh no! So it was the fact that how many tracks were on Shortcuts that he had. I don't know. It was like 24 or something.
That sounds right.
It was live, and I was like, okay.
Well, the player they had 3 boards.
Okay.
And they were mixing into mixers.
Oh yes. Okay. So basically he has all these things, and I'm like, okay, he did it then. Like, let's have that now. And I'm like, we were told you can't do that. That's still almost impossible today, even with all these digital. It's just crazy expensive, the amount of stuff you need. And I was so like let down. I'm like, wow, how ahead of the game was he that like we're being told no about something that he was able to do then.
Totally, yeah.
But man, oh man,
he was obsessed with that. I mean, there's a guy, John Pritchett, who's still in the business, who did Shortcuts. I've done a bunch of films with him, and he could still do it. I brought it up to him the other day, and he's like, "You got a place to put the truck?"
Yeah, exactly.
Like, Like,
Can you put that truck on a cart or in a
but
bag?
he was a perfect example of like, yeah, okay, he had a fucking truck for sound, but at least the set that I was on, it felt like 10 people. So maybe there were 40 people. But it never felt that way. And maybe that's the thing. It kind of it's whatever. You could have 100 people, but if the vibe is good, it can feel like a small.
I felt our even though our set was big, it felt small and intimate. I felt like a lot of the crew members, at the end they were coming up to us saying that felt like the first one again. You know what I mean? Felt like their first film, and these are people who've worked. Charlie, our key grip, I'd be like mention Griffin Dunn. He was like, "Oh, I almost killed Griffin Dunn once." I was like, "What?" He said, "Yeah, on After Hours, I rigged the camera that falls down, and like it just didn't stop, and it just miraculously stopped inches from his face." And you remember that shot when the keys get thrown?
And Charlie grabbed it at the last second.
Yeah, and burned his hand. Yeah, he grabbed. It was a pulley system,
right?
But like you're sitting around, you're looking at one of your collaborators. Like, "You worked on After Hours?" He's like,
"Yeah."
And then he also worked on Do the Right Thing. And you're just like, wow, we were really like humbled by these titans.
New York crews they're jaded, right? They're rough. They're probably
for sure.
And now there's so much TV being shot in New York now that like they don't on the certain budget level they don't get to do these movies anymore.
Right.
We drove by the Holland Tunnel, and
not the Holland Tunnel, it was the Midtown.
The Midtown Tunnel. Yeah. And so Andy Day, the gaffer, has just kind of mentioned something in passing, and we heard that. We're like, "Oh, you worked on Daylight?" And he's like,
"You guys want to talk to me about Daylight?" We're like, "We love Daylight." And then we were like, "What's Sly Stallone like?"
That's all we wanted.
It's like at that point he was so lean that he got cold so quickly. So they had these blankets always.
He was like rushed out like a piece of veal.
He called him. He was like a veal. And I was like, "Oh man, Sly Stallone's a movie star. That's
Yes,
that's a movie star.
Yeah, for sure." No, I remember. I remember. Hearing for the first time about the first version of Rocky, his concept of Rocky was that he was an actor, a struggling actor, and trying to make it. People were like, no one wants to watch an actor. So then he shifted it to become about a boxer.
Really?
Yeah, and because that's about punching up and trying to make it. And with this movie, the gambler side of it, and this guy who sees this values in these uncut gems and everything, it's filmmaking for me. It really is. It's just like here's this thing that I see so much value in that on first glance some people be like, I don't see the value in that. It's like, no, you have to get into it. You got to get into it. And Phantom Thread, I totally see. I see.
Yeah, completely.
I see why you were attracted to that, and as a filmmaker, someone actually told me they saw a weird parallel between Phantom Thread and Gems. The idea that this guy
there was a whole post of like all these pictures and stills.
Really?
Awesome.
Because it was like this guy who's always on
So
and
you can
has
only
to
be
be
so lucky.
literally
Sick
to stop.
Right.
I told you this. I said I saw that movie with my lady, and she was just like
The thing
it was just like it was awkward.
He felt.
I think it's awkward for a lot of people who work.
Particularly a filmmaker. Like,
Yeah, it's like, oh, sorry.
no, that's not you at all.
The thing is, he was so alive, Daniel Day. It was like I couldn't believe it because he's been in so many movies, and you've worked with him before. But it's like again, he was so fresh, and so new, and I was like, I've never seen him do this before, ever.
Yeah,
and I loved it.
But I think that the similar would be like that between filmmaking and that film is like I could see myself as Howard, particularly as a kid when you're just you are trying to marshal as many people as you can towards this thing, this cockamamie thing, and even some friend, and you start to lose people because it gets more and more complicated and more scatterbrained and everything else. If it's just fucking around in the living room, I'll do that with you. You know what I mean? And then you start to see it peel off. You're like, no, we're getting up at 5. Why are we getting up at 5? Like, because the light is perfect then. It's like, no, I'm out. You lose that friend, you lose that friend. But that Howard thing of like, no, let me just chase this. If you can fucking stick with me, I swear to God we'll get something great.
It's also super high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're literally going way out of pocket. Obviously early on, and then as the movies get bigger, it becomes like even more high risk, high reward. But when it works artistically, I mean, I can for this one, I feel like I'll be able to watch this one for a very long time.
Do you have you having the blue? You don't seem like you guys are having the blue.
Oh no, yeah, I'm gonna crash. I was talking to Ronnie about this the other day. I
There's
said
a
it's gonna
date
happen.
that's coming, yeah.
And because I'm a high-low guy, I crash and I get on this. Right now, I'm just delirious.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm just kind of waking up, doing what I need to do. And walking in and saying, okay, how long are we in this place for? How long are we in that?
Yeah.
And it's not a healthy way to live. This is the end of 10 years. Every project we made in the past 10 years have been in service of making this one. Right. So at some point, I mean, I've already have a couple of worlds that I'm starting to deposit feelings and worlds into. That's the goal. Is you just gotta find a new world to just dump yourself into and just forget about this. But it's gonna be really tough because this was a big one for
the thing that's weird is after every other movie before this, it was like, if that didn't work, over, not making movies anymore. Right. So this is a little bit different. It's like, oh, I have a sense that we're gonna do something. I don't know what it is, but we're gonna do something, and I know that. So that's a different weird feeling. But yeah, the other movies, if they failed, we were like not gonna be doing it anymore. We'd have to figure something out.
You get the blues when you finish
big
the
time, big time.
At what point when you?
It's usually around now, I mean,
or when you're starting to stop talk about it or a little bit.
No, well, the blue. I mean, they come in different waves. Like I've always found this weird kind of extra turbo boost. You've finished shooting something, suddenly you're still sort of in it. You have this energy. You haven't come off that enthusiasm. I found myself writing feverishly for like the week after shooting, where you should sort of collapse, and then this sort of collapse happens, and then there's a kind of panic in the editing room, what the fuck? But then there's that.
Why? Because you do assemblies. Do you do assemblies?
Yeah, you're putting it together, and but there's also that excitement, and so that kind of. But that, I suppose, like the melancholy happens as you first show it.
Mm-hmm. It's not yours anymore.
It's not yours anymore. It's never going to be as good as it was. The joy of being around people every day. It's all just sort of like diminishing returns.
Yep.
Somebody saying they love it feels good, but it's kind of empty. Somebody saying they hate it doesn't really get you.
Well, yeah,
it's
exactly. There's nothing.
Why is that one the one I want to do?
I mean,
why do you think that?
You feel less alone when people are like interested in the same things that actually interested you. You feel less alone, which is a huge part of it. But you're right. It's the good is like all right, and the bad is just like you're a fucking asshole. You know what I mean? Like go to your rock. I'll be over here.
The only thing I could kind of liken it to is like when you're sick, you don't ever know when you're gonna feel.
When am I gonna get better?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Am I gonna get better?
Is that gonna happen? Like, is this gonna happen again? Like,
and it's weird to remember. Like, wow, now this is gonna be the anomaly.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Is it? Do I feel this is it? Is what I feel like from now on in my life?
It's weird. It's scary.
I remember when we were.
But I'll wait. You know what? There's one thing though and this actually goes back to Sandler. I remember though that when you do get back into this feeling of writing, I remember seeing Sandler at one point after Punch Drunk Love and starting to write again, and he said, "Isn't that the best?" I say, yeah, and he says like that everything is interesting because you are suddenly like open again. You're sort of like you're looking. You're like your heart's open. Everything's a possibility. And Sandler sort of pointed that out to me one time. He's like, he's exactly right. Because you've been going like inside for so long, and suddenly like
I'm excited to have the new arena to look around because like I was so in the sphere of gems and the some of the criminality of that world and that I was seeing everything through that lens.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to have a new arena of a new perspective to look through things because that's nice and just in general.
But there's also nothing too like 10 years can pass and to look back and go like, I fucking did that.
Yeah.
Who did that? I guess that was me. Shit. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a wild feeling. We were watching some of the endings of the Dome over the weekend, and it was just with Sandler sitting there. Sandler was laying on the floor and with Jackie, and they were watching this thing at the end.
How's it look at the Dome?
Unbelievable.
What's
because the kind of the cosmic elements traveling through the gem. and the shape of the
It looks
the dome,
like it, yeah.
you're like an
Yeah.
Epcot Center.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? And I feel like it feels like everyone's actually on a ride. I met someone who's doing something, who writes about the perspective that astronauts have when they leave the planet and how it affects their view of humanity. And they were like talking to me about that because of the movie. So seeing that, and I think he saw it on a big screen like that. I think it's evocative, the size of that screen. I mean, the curve is so futuristic, but like so not, of the past. Yeah.
For me, it actually was. There was we did with Skip. We panned all the dialogue. So on that screen in particular, it's so wide that it literally is like it's like an expanse.
Do you remember the thing we went to in Moscow?
Oh my God, that thing was unbelievable. It was.
Benny and I got paid by the U.S. government to just kind of go and teach some film in Moscow, but we were totally spied on the entire time. We were young.
No, literally. Okay, let me paint the scenario. Now that I thought back, I'm like, oh my God, what did we go through? We arrive at the airport. Josh gets sick violently. The only person on the airplane who gets sick is this guy. So he's held back at the bathroom. I'm waiting with him at the bathroom. By the time we get to customs, it's shut down. There's no customs open, and we're the only people on the other side of the airport. I'm like, oh, this is weird. Finally, we get through, and some strange guy hooks us up with this cab person who drives us to our hotel, and we get to the hotel.
Speaks no English.
No
only
English.
Russian,
So Josh is passed out. He's so sick. And I'm like, I can't go to sleep because I don't know where this car is going to turn. Because it's scary.
Moscow's tough.
Yeah.
And then we get to the lobby of the Metropole Hotel, which is like got Lenin's quote on the side. And this woman who from the government, so we were told, hands us our per diem in
Cash.
cold hard cash, just an envelope. It's like, sorry, we're going to be closed, so don't worry about it. And then she walks away.
And you can only use the Wi-Fi in the lobby. Yeah. That was the Wi-Fi was only available in the lobby. And the lobby, as I was trying to write an email, woman after woman was coming up to me like, wow, that's a very nice shirt you're wearing. And I'm thinking like, do I look good right now? I was like checking myself out in the mirror. I was like, I had a good shower this morning or something. What's up with the way I look? And then eventually this woman sits down and talks to me. She's like, let's go see your room. And I was like, oh, you're a prostitute. and
we were befriended by that guy who said he was Lebanese, but he didn't quite look Lebanese. He had a big fur collar. He's like, let's go check out Lenin's tomb. And we cut the line.
He asked us so many weird questions while we were in the Lenin's tomb. But I bring it up because we went to this kind of dilapidated amusement park where they had a Cinerama dome,
right?
Where it was 8 16mm projectors. It was so cool, and it was in like it was the same shape as the dome,
right?
Except probably 1/100th the size.
But it was
so cool, and it was
that was amazing.
Right?
So they clicked on and you saw the overlap of the projectors. It was awesome.
But it was very futuristic in the past sense. Like this is in the future, you're going to be immersed in film, and you're not going to have to look around, and you'll just be in it. And that's kind of like what the dome is a little bit.
But again, that's another instance where the past is like ahead of where we are now in some weird way.
Right, right. Well, you guys lost the Ziegfeld.
I know,
which is a real drag. I mean, that's a bummer.
I know. I kind of wanted to go see
Space or something. It still has the name in there, so I get excited every time I go by.
Really?
It still says Ziegfeld.
Still says Ziegfeld on it. I was actually
gross.
Yeah, it's really
I mean, I guess that's better than nothing. But
you had movies played at the Ziegfeld.
Fuck yeah! It was the greatest. It was absolutely the greatest. Like
You did premieres there.
Yeah, we did. There Will Be Blood premiere there.
Oh, amazing.
And they still had the 70 projectors. We saw The Master there.
Oh, and you did The Master at Ziegfeld?
Yeah.
I saw The Master like 11 a.m. showtime at the Lincoln Square 70mm.
Yeah.
Packed.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, because they had said I think we put 70 in there for that.
So you were the first to do that, probably.
I think at the Lincoln, we were.
And then they ended up doing it, I think, for
Dunkirk and Hateful Eight.
Well, I saw Dunkirk 70 there, and it crapped out twice. It was unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, there's that. Did you guys make film prints of this?
There's going to be one 35mm print. Okay.
We'll talk to Scott.
Okay.
Because I want one for my
man.
fucking library.
Amazing. Do you have 35mm?
I do. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
And what I usually do is when I know they're going to make, I'll talk to Photocam. You make it a Photocam?
We're actually not doing it in inner negative. It's bypassing. It's the Cinnovator thing. Which is you bypass the negative and you just make one print. But A24
from the digital negative.
Yeah.
from the digital negative, correct?
But that's fine. Yeah, no, but they must have done it at Photochem, no?
They didn't. They did it in the company in London to see. Maybe they did. I don't know. Maybe they changed
Usually,
it.
it's the London company has. Apparently, they have like an old like stock that's. I don't know. There's something.
No.
Great.
They're doing the premiere.
I know,
stuff.
but the London. There's a place in London that has it. There's like 6 places.
Cinelab, maybe Cinelab. Yeah. Okay.
We'll get you a print.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
love for you to have a print.
Yeah.
It's gonna be cool on film.
I like the thing you talk about. Do we need to wrap it up? 2 more minutes.
Okay.
When I asked you about the fish,
Oh yeah.
and you're like, "Yeah, I just made that shit up." Yeah. And it's one of those great things, like when you follow your instinct with something, and it just makes sense, even if it doesn't make sense. And to an audience, I'm sure, like it was to me, it was like, "Oh, you learn something new every day." They ship that shit in fish because you just feel it, and then. Against all better judgments, if you look it up on the fucking internet, you're like, they would never do that. You're like, I'm doing it because it just seems right.
It was so weird. I just got a text from somebody that said, "Oh, that reminds me of my cousin who had shipped diamonds in oranges." And they just like shipped them in these fruits. And I was like, but nobody believed him.
Right.
But that's how he did it.
I think
shit.
that thing maybe came from reading this book about the reptile trade and how they would
the cocaine.
They would smuggle. They would actually put like deep water fish in liquid cocaine, so they don't need oxygen. And to get this liquid, dump the fish out, or they would.
Fish and wildlife. They look in, and they're like, oh, it's just fish. And then they throw the fish away and they evaporate.
So I think that's maybe, or maybe came. Our dad was a fishmonger for about 6 years. So
also just makes sense.
He was getting these fish. It just makes sense. I mean, it's just visually so awesome.
It's so good.
Yeah.
You have to do more PR?
Yes, it goes on for another. We get to go home on the 21st.
I'm coming to town day after Christmas.
Thanks for listening. The A24 podcast is produced by us, A24. Special thanks to our editor, Tom Wyatt, and Robot Repair, who composed our theme.